Right then, let's expand this conversation. Daniel Rangers is joining us live in Washington, D.C. Angela Kubler is in Johannesburg as well. Angela, let's start with you. Now that U.S. imports have finally started to come in, have the local poultry farmers resigned themselves to this being the new norm, or are they looking for fresh and different protection from the state?
Well, bottom line here is the poultry industry agreed to that importation of that 65,000 tonnes. It was their agreement, and essentially they did take one for the local AGOA team. In context, though, South Africa imported around 450,000 tonnes of poultry last year, so this amount is really very small. The actual import period, by the way, starts on the 1st of April. This phase that we've just gone through was kind of a test run. At this stage, though, Raman, the poultry farmers don't really know what kind of damage this new deal is going to have on them. We don't also have any detail on pricing or who the initial buyer was. That's probably all going to come out in the wash in the next sort of 10 days or so. But it's the farmers' agreement, and they have to live with it. Raman?
Indeed. Daniel, let's lock in some details here. When exactly will this AGOA eligibility review be formally ended?
Well, the US Trade Representative, Michael Froman, has told us in a phone call yesterday that essentially the South Africans have now met all the benchmarks, including, as you say, this entry into the South African market. And therefore, he's recommending to President Obama that it be lifted. And I expect that to happen in a few days, not least because the threat is still in law or executive order to impose these restrictions on March 15th. So President Obama has to get his signing pen out pretty soon in order to normalise relations with South Africa, and I think that is going to happen.
Angelo, I understand there were some last-minute kinks to be worked out with respect to pork imports to the U.S. Tell us more about that. What exactly was the issue?
Roman, in fact, as of today, we were told by the minister that there are no kinks. Everything's in place. If there are any kinks, the DTI have said that they're probably on the US side. The DTI, that's the Department of Trade and Industry, says it's happy it's met all its obligations, of course. And besides, you know, the lowering of the poultry food safety standards, which were highlighted by Kevin Lovell of the SA Poultry Association, it seems that it's all systems go, that everything's been resolved, and, well, almost everyone's happy. Just as an aside, the US ambassador a little while ago informed us that several South African government agencies and some representatives from the US poultry industry are actually at the US Embassy in South Africa, and they're busy working to develop 31 new black-owned businesses in the poultry industry. Raman?
Daniel, given how this dispute played out in South Africa, is this going to be the new norm? Aggressive trade negotiations with very firm, very fixed deadlines. Is this the new norm in US-Africa economic relations?
Well, I think from the American perspective, what they've said to us is that they gave South Africa the benefits of AGOA for 15 years. And in that 15 years, they always had chicken and poultry exports excluded from their market. They negotiated a deal on the back of, the threat of being excluded from AGOA. They did the deal, and then they were a little bit concerned about some of the sanitary, some of the bureaucratic hurdles that they saw in place, and that they needed to resolve those to the satisfaction of the South Africans as well. And they've managed to do that. So I think these kind of trade negotiations, the sort of use of hardball tactics, is fairly normal. Let's also not forget that pork and beef are going to be rising product categories in South Africa going forward. Chicken is obviously the biggest prize, but pork and beef too are going to be allowed to be exported to South Africa. So that gives American farmers some more opportunities in the future, although at the moment the levels are likely to be fairly low.
Right, we'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you both gentlemen for your input. Daniel Rangers live in Washington, and of course Angela Kubler in Johannesburg.